Hey everyone, I'm Matt with Tractor Guys Garage, and tonight we are back on a blue truck. So in the previous video you saw, we got the truck on the road. It's driving, it's running, and it's mostly functioning. So obviously that was a big achievement, but we are far from done with that truck. We've got quite a bit more left to do before the truck is anywhere even close to being done. So that's kind of what we're going to start on in this video, is starting to take care of all of the little stuff, all of the stuff that is the what I would call the next step. Once you've got a vehicle on the road and functional, that's the first step. Next step is all the little stuff that, you know, to actually make it a functional, in theory, daily drivable vehicle. That's what we're going to be working on next. And we'll go over here and look at the list of what we were working on previously, and then I'm going to go ahead and update it, and we'll show you kind of what we're thinking. So over here is the list of everything that we were working on previously. Just quite a few of them checked off here, but there was also several of these that we marked off that were just not going to happen for the truck to make the drive, but are things we now really should try to get taken care of. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to erase all this stuff, and we're going to redo this based off of what we need currently to kind of complete this next step. I'm going to call this Phase 2. Alright, and now we've got the new list created, and this is kind of what we're going to be doing. It's not particularly in any order, but this is kind of where I'm thinking we need to be to help kind of hit that Phase 2, quote unquote, of work to be done on the truck. Basically, a lot of the things are transferred over from the original list, making the factory tack functional and getting the governor where it should be, finishing 4x4 linkage and getting all of that functional. At the moment, I don't have a front drive shaft in here because, quite frankly, it doesn't need it yet, and I'm not really wanting to spend the money on the front drive shaft if I don't need it yet. Getting the gas pedal functioning, I found out that the gas pedal and the throttle cable were sticking on the drive over there. Not in the engaged position, but you'd have to kind of tap it a little harder to get it to give you any throttle. So it needs a throttle cable, and then I need to reattach my pedal pad because that came off. And to go along with that, finishing the reconstruction of the floor around the pedal to make sure that's all sealed up nice. And then once we can get that done, getting the carp and the shifter boots all put back in again once we have the shifters installed, and we can get the bottom of the cab sealed back up nice and tight. Getting a front bumper mount back on it is also something that we did not get done previously. We're going to try to get that done as well as building an electric fan setup for it and getting that installed, because while the truck did absolutely phenomenally driving down the road, it did not get hot one bit. I would like to be able to have this thing sit in traffic and run and not worry about it overheating, which is when it does build up some temperature, obviously because it has no airflow. So we're going to try to see if we can get that taken care of. And to go along with some of that, I'd really, when we're not moving, like to get some AC going if possible, because when we're not moving, there's no airflow in that cab and it makes it really pretty stuffy. So if we can get this setup going with the air conditioning working and getting the mount and everything done, that would be a really big deal. That's not obviously super high priority, but if we can get that functional, that'd be really nice. And then I'd like to get the front tank created and put back in eventually, as well as making sure the rear tank is all functioning good as it should be. As y'all may remember, I eventually want to change the rear tank out for a larger 38-gallon tank, but for the moment, I think we're just going to run the 19 that it originally would have had and just kind of run with it for the moment, honestly, just because it really is not doing any harm the way it is, and the truck seems to get pretty good mileage out of it. So eventually that'll happen with the rear tank, and we'll look at getting that changed over. But honestly, for the moment, it's fine the way it is. One thing I just remembered that I need to add to this list is going to be exhaust. Because currently the truck does not have any kind of an exhaust on it other than the downpipe coming out of the turbo. And I'd really like to get an actual exhaust that at least dumps out farther back on the truck, preferably all the way out the rear. It's just going to be a 4-inch straight pipe for now, honestly. I don't think I'm going to do any kind of a muffler for the moment, at least. Eventually I might cut one in, but I think honestly the drive over there was really not too bad, and I think we got the exhaust coming out more towards the rear of the truck. It'll do just fine. So that's the main thing I want to do. I also, part of this, want to get a heat blanket around the turbo and the downpipe to help protect some of the firewall and the plastic components of the air duct system, which is pretty close to it, and I just want to prevent any further issues. So that's the other thing I really would like to get done here in this next phase. And so this is what we're going to call Phase 2. This may also be somewhat flexible and fluid as we get going. But basically, for those of you that may not remember, The goal with whenever I've done a big project like this in the past, I kind of do it in stages, especially with a vehicle swap as big as this. I might not always say it quite like I'm doing it in this way, but this is typically what I try to do. I call it, first phase is the getting the motor in the truck, get it driving, make sure it functions at the basic level of a driving vehicle. Once we get that taken care of, we can go into phase 2, which is all of the creature comforts, I guess. It's all the stuff that's not, critical to functionality, but is something you really want in a drivable vehicle. And then beyond phase 2 is however many phases you want to call it past then, phase 3, phase 4, whatever. I don't really number it much past that. But it's all then the add-on stuff that's, the stuff that's not really, that important, but it's the cool stuff you want to do later on, is kind of what I call in that phase. So right now, I think we are firmly completing the first phase of it's drivable. Now we need to move on to all of the rest of the stuff. So yeah, I'll probably bring the truck in here a little later, and yeah, we'll see what we can get done. Alright, well, it's the next day now, and for no other reason than, quite frankly, it's hot outside and it's what I'm thinking about right now. I decided the first thing I want to do is work on this air conditioning system, at least to try to figure out what I can do here, because here, I'll show you kind of what we're dealing with for this new conversion setup that we've done. So if this was an original Power Stroke truck, the air conditioning compressor that's on this side now would have originally been on this side of the engine. And as you see, I've got the original piping here that would have originally connected into the system. Obviously though, that being over there and moving it, we create a bit of a challenge here. Also with the fact that this is a hot exhaust, we have to kind of change the routing of our system here. So I drew a little diagram here. This is what the original truck would have had. You would have had a compressor, compressing Freon, going through your condenser to the evaporator. There also is an orifice tube in here, but that, for our sake, is not changing. You then would come through the evaporator, through the filter dryer, out, back into the compressor, and the cycle repeats. We've now moved the compressor over to here. So the logical thing would just be to take these lines, boop, boop, extend them and connect them in, and everything works all hunky-dory, right? Well, the only problem is if I do that on the actual vehicle here, you see we run into a slight challenge. Now I have to connect this hose back into here, which is not too big of a problem. I just have to basically probably change the direction of this, run it down through here and up. And I don't see really any problem with that. We just have to make some slight changes. I'll have to do a different hose. That shouldn't be a problem. Where we do get into a problem is going over to here to connect in this high pressure side right here. That is where we can create a bit of a problem, because this high pressure side is now going to need to be connected here and lengthened to run all the way over to the compressor right here. And that means we have to do either one of two things. One, we have to run a line all the way around and back, and obviously, like I said, we got a hot turbo and manifold right here, so that means in reality it needs to come all the way over and come back in. Or we have to try to make a line that'll come and maybe follow along this cooler, the upper radiator hose here, follow it down and over to the condenser right over here-ish. So as you can see, we have a bit of a challenge with plumbing, just how much hose we want to actually use on this particular setup. Well, right now, guys, trying to just see what maybe can work, trying to get the old air conditioning, hooked up. That's what we had. That's what I got to figure out, either to make a line around or across. Basically, either to come around and go to the condenser, or follow the heater hosing around, which I kind of like following the heater hosing around. I just have to make sure that I leave enough length if I do that, because when I pull the valve cover off, I kind of have to pull these hoses out of the way slightly. So I do need to make sure I leave all that in, but I'm kind of thinking the following the hose like this and around, because the fitting is right there. So I don't know, we'll see. I got to see what I can get for heater hose, or for AC hose too, see what it's cost to get some. Alright, well, bringing you back here, got a little bit of work done. So what we decided, you may recall, working on the AC system here, at least trying to come up with something. And I think I figured out what I want to do. I did a little bit of research and found I'm probably going to go with, I've got a bunch of stuff, and I've talked with Vintage Air before, and I like a lot of the products, so I will probably be going through them to get the AC parts to make this work, but we will see. Quite frankly, I'm gonna put a little bit of a pin in this because I realize there's one other thing I've got to figure out, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But I am at least figured out what I think we want to do to get this laid out, so I'll show you what I'm talking about. So the system that I think is going to work best, I kind of said we've got two options: running the hose like this or like this, which basically means running it out and around and back in, or kind of up and around this way. And I think I've decided that using a flexible line and just running it up and kind of following this line here and then just simply connecting in over to right here with like a 45 or something is probably going to be the best bet. I can keep it nice and tight, and as long as I use a flexible hose, I can still pull this out of the way slightly, and I can still move it to get the valve cover off whenever I need to service under the valve cover or do whatever. I think that'll be the best for us for making this system work effectively, and then I can just run the other line right up into here, and I think that'll minimize the amount of line we'll need and also not risk having to run lines over and around some of our other plumbing here that I'm really trying to avoid. I'd really like to, as much as I can, keep from running just excessive plumbing and lines everywhere. It's kind of the one thing I've been trying to do with this truck, is minimize wherever I can the just rampant running of hoses and everything. Try to keep things as short and tight as I can, within reason obviously. But I'm going to do a little more figuring, kind of see what I'm going to need. I'll have to get some stuff coming for that AC system. So I think for now, that's about as far as we can do that. But I'll have and show you something else I've been working on, is this right here. So this, I kind of was actually mimicking this off of like a Hirsch shifter, because I like the design of those. This is going to be the shifter for the four-wheel drive linkage. So basically what it is I'll get you a spin around here. So basically what we did is took the shifter that I got from my buddy Mr. Noah, we cut it down a little bit and cut the bottom part of it off. Found out that was going to work a little better, and I made a pivot and an extra tang here that's going to step down the same amount as the original shifter would have, so we should have the same throw. And then I just basically fabricated up. It's roughly kind of tacked together right now. We're going to see if this works, and then I'll go ahead and fully weld it. Essentially a little gate shifter here that will allow this to pivot but not to overextend, and hopefully make it nice and strong for what we're doing. And then this is going to bolt directly onto the top of the transmission, and that should be a pretty nice and strong connection. If I need to brace it a little tighter, I can put some other brace pieces in here to kind of stiffen it up if need be. But I think we're going to try it like this, and we're going to see how it works. Just see if it's stiff enough. I can always go back and add more bracing later. I wanted to originally have it kind of tie in with the clutch linkage and some of the other stuff, but I think this is going to end up working out a lot better. It's going to be a lot more modular. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in the truck here, and then I'm going to get to putting some linkage on, and we're going to see if we can maybe get something figured out. Alright, so here's what we got figured out here. So I've got it installed here. Here's the shifter. We are in low range, we are in too high right now. There's the shifter. You see we're bolting to two of the top case mounts for the transmission. See, tucked up in there. So that is good. Nice and rigid. I'm very happy with that. I was thinking I was going to need mounts that would go backwards, but I think this is going to be plenty strong enough, and I'm pretty happy with it. I do have to kind of, pry my floor out just a touch more. It's a little snug, but I've got to modify this a little bit anyway, so not worried about that. But yeah, I mean, now we've got the same. So if I stay first click, that's for high, that's neutral, and then that's for low, and then shove it back into too high. And if we go down underneath here, you can see kind of what we've got. It's a pretty simple set of linkage. You see up in there here, look behind the clutch linkage. So there's the bottom of that bracket that's bolted to the transmission, and there's the linkage. I just basically took the factory linkage, cut it, added this piece of rod in there, and I welded a fine thread bolt to thread into this heim joint here, so I have some adjustability to get it to go in fully. And I'm thinking I've got it about right. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to go in pretty well, so I'm thinking we're pretty good. And then, yeah, it just uses the same factory original joint there, and I just kind of bent it so that it sneaks behind this plate in here. And then when you actuate it, it pivots and pulls this whole rod forward to go into 4 high or 4 low. So yeah, I'm thinking I'm pretty happy with that. I think we're going to call that good for now. And next thing is, I think we're going to go and try, now that I've effectively got everything done with the floor. You see, obviously we got a little more patching left to do, and for the moment, I've been debating this. I think I am just going to leave this basically tech screwed together for now. As you see, it's pretty well back in there, and I've got quite a few gaps in it, but I think for now I'm just going to shoot some screws kind of along here, maybe put a piece of filler sort of in here, I don't know, put something over that, basically enough to kind of solidify this. But I don't think I'm going to actually try to weld anything up in here, because this cab will not be staying for forever. And I think that's honestly going to be the best option, because, oop, got a little dirt on the lens there. There we go. The cab I don't think is going to be sticking around, this particular cab. I'm going to be making a new cab for it, and quite frankly, I just don't think it's worth messing with. So I'm just going to get it as good as I can patched up for now, that it'll hold, and then we'll get the carpet back on it, get it all sealed up enough, because also, I mean, it's got a rust hole there. It's got a few other holes kicking around here, because I fixed this cab and I put a whole bunch of work into making this cab nice. And unfortunately, it seems like the quality of the metal I was using, or just the fact that it's in Midwest roads, pretty well rotted most of that repair work out again. And I could fix this cab. I really thought about fixing it, but I have a clean cab that is pretty much rust free, that I essentially have for free because I parted the rest of the truck out and I made a bunch of money off of what was left of the truck. So I have a clean cab that is not costing me anything. So I think that's going to be the better option, and I can do all the modifications I want to do in the floor to that cab, actually do them right, make it really pretty and really nice, and then put that cab on here and actually do it the correct way. So I think we're just going to go ahead and get that patched up as best we can for now, just to get it together. And we'll go ahead and get some carpet back in this thing and get it sealed back up.